Good afternoon. Welcome to today's webinar event. My name is Joshua. I'm going to be your presenter today. I'd like to welcome you all. We're here for about the next 20 minutes or so. It's promptly 12:30 Eastern Time. We're going to go ahead and get started momentarily. A few technical things. Well, before we get started, we're here to talk about the quick overview of the Church Windows Scheduler module. If everybody can see my screen okay, what we're talking about here is basically right between our membership and our donations icons. We've got our little scheduler icon there. It's a database that is certainly, I think, very powerful, but oftentimes underutilized, and certainly and we're going to look at a few things today that might encourage you to maybe start using that module here. But before we get started, click the little red arrow on the sidebar of your webinar control panel. Allows you to minimize that, get it out of the way, or drag it off to your second desktop if you've got a dual monitor setup. If you have questions, please type those into the questions portion of the webinar control panel. I will do my best to keep an eye on those questions. If they're appropriate for whatever I'm on at that particular moment, I'll certainly try my best to repeat that and get that answered. If not, I'll certainly be happy to stick around and see what we can't do to get those questions answered at the end. The event is being recorded today, so the video will be produced and out on our website here sometime in the next few days, maybe tomorrow or Thursday at the latest. Please keep the questions on topic, meaning about the scheduler module. There may be another webinar or event that's in future here that may be better suited to answer your questions. Or of course, you're welcome to contact our technical support staff here or email us questions if you have those. All right, so don't think I've forgotten anything there. Oh, sorry. Yes, there is something I'm forgetting. So sorry about that. So right here, one of the things we want to point out is that when we go here to beginning training resources, if I go to the free training webinars, I'm just accessing it here, but you can access this at any time. Down here, folks, at the bottom left below the event where it says basic features of the scheduler module is the how do I start. What that does is that takes you to the page on our website for basically, so if you're unfamiliar with Church Windows or just starting with your database, this page has all kinds of useful information for getting started here. And what we're looking at right here is on the left-hand side, this getting started PDF document. I'm kind of using that as the basis a little bit for the software for my module today. So right here, down here under Chapter 3 Scheduler, this is available in here for you to access should you need it or want it, but it might prove to be insightful and helpful for you in addition to perhaps what you're seeing or what you're able to find in the Church Windows help files or in the workbooks. So, for those of you that are unfamiliar with the scheduler or unfamiliar with what it does is basically, as the page 64 there describes, records details for church events, date, time, locations, categories, equipment tracking, and even people that are assigned and participating in events. And what I mean by participating is whether there's duties that need to be accomplished for events or completed for events to take place, like a custodian for a cleanup from an event or a a wedding cleanup or something like that, or for a fellowship event, or and in this case, things like equipment can be used to track where equipment is used at the church for a particular event. And along with that, there's even some conflict checking that will allow us to be able to determine, like, say, a room. We don't want to schedule a room in the church for 2 events at the same time. So there's some conflict checking capability in the software too that allows you to ensure that things like that are not overlapping or unavailable, and when you've only got one of them. You can run reports from Scheduler. Okay, so we're going to try to get a few minutes here and look at some reports here in the Scheduler module as well. And as the item 2 there talks about, it says it links to the membership files, so you can then bring in people that are in your membership database and have them available to assign for duties or contacts or what have you. The final topic there, in addition to, of course, the conflict checking that we're talking about, is exporting the calendar from Church Windows into as a VCal format, and so that you can put it into like Outlook or another calendar program, or even Palm Desktop or other calendaring programs. And finally, and that's not even mentioned in here, is the ability for it to be able to export as an HTML file for you to put on the church's website, say, for example. Okay, so here we're looking at our main scheduler module, and I've created some databases, some events in here that are already here for us to be able to run reports. But we notice here, like we've got our Sunday school that we've got set up on Sunday mornings at 9, and we've got our Sunday morning worship set up for 10:30 to 11:30 in here, finance committee meetings, and each one of those are constructed separately. Now, this one of the things that I was going to do here was I was going to set up an event, a couple of events for us here. But it all starts with, before we go ahead and do that, is right up here in the upper left-hand corner is this option under the menu option called Setup, okay? So when we click on the Setup, it brings up a menu, and it says, okay, categories or duties or equipment or locations, people, shaded areas, and options. So categories, if we click on that, it's going to bring up our current list of categories that we have, and we notice here, to me, categories is a little bit of a gray area, but this kind of gives us a good idea of what we might categorize or group categories by. So building rentals, or classes, adult ed, or classes, Sunday school, or committee meetings, or group meetings, or worship services. So maybe your church has multiple worship service events, throughout the course of the week. Maybe a couple on Sunday, maybe one on Saturday, or one midweek or something like that. So categories simply allow us to organize and group our events together if they happen to have kind of a common theme to them, okay? So again, just to give you an idea of what categories do, but if I wanted to set up a new category, I would simply start by clicking the Add button down here in the bottom left, and it opens up and says, okay, what name do you want to give your category? Are there any notes you want to give it? Is there a particular color you want to give to it, okay? What we're going to see here as we're looking kind of through the scheduler module is that many of these other setup functions for locations and equipment and what have you are all very similar in terms of their, I call them conventions, in terms of how they're kind of established and set up in the same way. I don't have anything I can add as a category here, folks, so I'm just going to remove that. So then, again, adding your categories, again, very straightforward, but events can be tied to categories if necessary, okay? And we're going to see that here in a little bit about how that works. When I go back up to my setup and I could go to duties, an example here of a duties would be acolytes or building monitor or custodial or custodian, greeters, hosts. One of the ones I was going to add here, there was one I was going to add one here before that we didn't have before, and I'm going to call it teacher. So maybe you've got a Sunday school teacher, or we can be very specific about that, but I'm going to be a little more general about that, and we're just going to call it a general teacher on that, okay? And we're going to simply click Save and Close. So now I have an option that, let's say, I'm going to go in later on here in a minute, and I'm going to add to my Sunday school events here. I'm going to add teacher because we got to have somebody to lead the Sunday school class. Don't have to call it teacher. I could call it Sunday school leader. I could call it anything I want. You can always come back in and edit those later as well. But again, the same process is kind of continuing. I'm just going to open up equipment because, again, I want to give you an idea of what all kinds of things that you can tie to your particular events as needed. So I've got tables, basketballs, DVD, sporting. You can enter anything in here, folks, that you want to, that the church owns, that they consider equipment that you want to associate with your particular events. Like right here, I've got the basketballs entered under equipment. Well, I've got listed here under my Wednesday night youth basketball. I've got basketballs. I want to make sure that those are associated so somebody knows that we've got those available, and I can include that information on my reports as needed, okay? Locations, very important. Again, we've got a series of rooms in the church that vary, that are all ranged all the way from our sanctuary to our fellowship hall to a gym to meeting rooms. All of this allows us to better manage and organize our church, the ministry, and all of its projects, okay? So All of this can be tied together into these things we call scheduler events, okay? Once you enter an event, you would highlight it, you would simply enter it, and then click Save and Close. If I wish to highlight anything or any of these screens and edit it, I can simply click on this, click the Edit button in the bottom left, or if I choose to remove it, I can simply click Delete. Notice here that in my locations, like right here, if I click on Sanctuary, notice I do have several tabs across the top here too. Categories, equipment, and contacts. So locations can be tied to equipment or to a variety of things. So right here on my Sanctuary, I can go, okay, I want to make sure my Sanctuary is tied to, say, my category of worship services. I simply click on Edit on that, and now notice I can check Worship Services and click Save and Close. Or I can go to Equipment. Okay, and so I can tie that to that. So when I click, I don't have anything tied for equipment to that, or I can choose Contacts to tie people to my Sanctuary. Maybe I've got somebody that manages that for me. Once I'm done, I simply click Save and Close. Finally, people. I can have up to 1,000 people from my membership database be available to associate with particular events, with events that I set up in my scheduler from membership. By simply coming in this window, simply checking the name, then that person becomes available, and I'm going to show you that here momentarily, okay? You simply go down the list, but you're limited to 1,000 people, okay? Finally, under Setup, shaded areas. So we notice here we've got these little green box, or right here, this little pink box enabled coffee break, office closed for lunch. They're just ways of being able to identify things or times or things that may be happening in the church that may or may not be categorized as scheduled events, scheduler events, okay? They are these little balloons here. These are just things that are informational about, hey, maybe when somebody tries to call the office between noon and 1 each day, nobody's there to answer the phone. The scheduler allows us to see why that is, okay, that the office is closed or that there's a coffee break or something, okay? But these are not scheduled events. They're shaded areas. And then finally, some options where, how do you want the view of it? You can, open to the day view, week view, month view. You can view by date, location, equipment. Variety of options here, folks. Do you want to set a default event duration? Are our events typically an hour long? Are they 30 minutes long? Are they 2 hours? What have you? When do we want to see the scheduler display start time? Do we want that to be at 8, 6, 9 in the morning? When do we want to have that, that daily view seen, okay? So again, lots of options. These are very similar, folks, to other calendaring programs. Google Calendar is a very similar one that I like to kind of parallel this to. As well, okay? So if you're familiar with other calendaring programs, scheduler shouldn't be too terribly challenging for you, okay? So let's say we want to set up an event now on our scheduler. I've only got about 6 or 7 minutes left here, folks. So let's say we've got a wedding. So here I would go over here on August 21st, and I would say, okay, our wedding event is set at 3 p.m. So I simply go over here, I click on that time frame, I double-click on it, it opens up my new event, and I can type in here, Allen wedding, and I can set it up to be a one-time event. I can set it up for all day if I want, but we're going to say it's only going to be, we're just hosting the actual wedding service itself. Had nothing to do with the reception or anything else. The church is just hosting the actual event itself. So we're going to set that for an hour, but I can set it for as long as I wish. If it were an all-day event, I can set it as such. Down here at the bottom, I can say, okay, change event locations. We're going to say, yep, that's in the sanctuary. Now I can go over here and I can set a contact for the event. So if I've got, the pastor or, somebody that my administrator or whomever, I can say, or I don't have to link that at all if I don't wish, okay? So we'll say Wendy Miller, can do that. I can say some equipment, so we can say, okay, we need a microphone, and if I had like something in here I can say, okay, microphone 1, click OK. Categories, I can change event categories. I could choose worship services, click OK. I can put in some notes, duties. So if I say add a duty here, I can choose that and I can say, okay, yep, we need a custodian or we need, greeters. So let's say I need greeters. I can even say how many I want. So let's say I want 2 of those. I can click and add another duty and choose something different. So let's say ushers, albeit the church, the family would probably have their own there. So I can say, okay, I want to have 4. So you get the idea. I can tie these particular things with, and I can even assign people in this case for these sorts of things. So then when I run my report, I can then run my report. All this information can be included. Folks, I can set up recurring events too. So I'm going to save this because it's a one-time event only. It only shows up on Saturday, August 21st. Other events like my Sunday morning worship in my sanctuary, when I click on that, it asks me, do I want to open the entire series or just the one event? We're going to do the entire series. When I click on that, I can click on reoccurrence, and notice here I can set an event to recur for months, years in advance if I want, okay, and edit them accordingly, any of the individual events. So we see here I've set my Sunday morning worship to be set as weekly on Sunday, ending after August 15th of 2022. And basically once I do this, click OK through that and save, it now saves that as an event on every Sunday for the next year, essentially, okay? And I can go in and edit individual events if I wish, okay? All right, with just a couple minutes left here, I want to talk a little bit about reporting. So right here, I've got a calendar. So if I want to just produce a simple calendar, I can do that. Just for like if I want to hang it in my office, I can choose a variety of options for content formats, selections. Do I want to limit it by to show, certain categories or equipment or contexts or duties, duty assignments? Okay, but if I choose nothing on that and click print, it's going to show me the month of August and in a calendar format exactly what I've got on my calendar. Okay, so there it is. Shows me every day what's scheduled, what time. I can include certain information on that. So I can include current date. No, that's not what I want. What am I looking for? Selections. Maybe this isn't what I'm looking at on this. Maybe I just haven't assigned them on that, but it should be printing on that either way. So one of the things I wanted to show here about this was, again, if I go right up here to export, I click the little down arrow. Notice right here I've got a variety of report file formats, including HTML. So if the church wants to publish the calendar on the church's website, weekly or monthly, you can absolutely do that, okay? If we want to actually do the export for VCal, that would be right up here, I believe, under File, and Export to VCal files. So if you want to export the calendar data to another calendaring program, you may certainly do that. But you've got a variety of other reports: event report, conflict report, categories, duties, equipment, location, people, what have you. So let's say I want to print an event report right here. I can choose the date range that I want. It's going to default to my current month, in this case August, which is fine. I can include, in the content tab, I can include as much of this information as I want: duration, categories, notes, locations, people, equipment information if I want. Right here, let's say if I want to just say print only these events meeting this particular criteria. So let's say I want to just print my, say, under my categories, I click on that, and I want to just print my committee meetings or group meetings for the month and click OK, and then click print. There are my committee meetings and group meetings that I've got scheduled for the month of, say, August. Or I can go back to categories and I can say just choose my, say, worship services, click OK. Again, I can choose to include other information based on my content. There are all of my worship events by Sunday for my 4 Sundays or that are in the sanctuary that I've got for the, I think that's because I've tied that to the category of the sanctuary here. The sanctuary is tied to that. That's why it includes that, folks. I'd have to go in and tear that apart to look at that, but there you go. So there's all my events in my sanctuary that are tied there for that, for the month of August. Okay, it is now 10 minutes till. We've gone through our 20 minutes. But folks, I encourage any of you, if you've got the scheduler module and you have that available, dive in, play with it, tie it to your people, see what you can do to help better organize the events as they occur, schedule those, avoid conflicts, try to make things run a little bit smoother at the church by using that, and the events by using that scheduler module.